Hey everyone, Melanie here. Welcome back to my channel. So this video is discussing whether it's a good idea to get our friends involved when we're having a relationship difficulty, and also included in this when you've got no one to talk about this with. The positives and the dangers of both. So I personally don't think it's a good idea to get your friends involved generally in a typical relationship. The reason why is, for the most part, we seem to have friends who have got our backs. When our friends have got our backs, when we share with them, difficulties in your relationship, often they will say things because they're on your side. Friends have a bias. Friends want what's best for you. But bear in mind that no one knows really what's going on in your relationship except you and your partner. So when you're giving your friends a story, a rundown of what's going on, perhaps you're in a bad mood and your mood taints what you're saying, perhaps biases it to make your partner out to be a right jerk. Your friends are going to pick up on this and they want to support you. They're going to have your back. And as such, they think, yeah, this person's being a jerk, when maybe it wasn't actually that bad. And perhaps the situation shifts, you're not having the same issue, but your friends are left with the old image they have of your partner. So if you find that your relationship, which, all relationships have their ups and downs, it's normal to have conflict. It's not ideal to have a relationship where there are never any arguments. Those kind of relationships eventually fizzle out because one person gets bored at least. So there is a danger in informing your friends every time there's like a dip in the relationship, because they're going to think it's always like this. And the more often that you're talking to your friends about this, they're going to have solidified a view of what you're like as a partner, of what your partner is like towards you. And sometimes it can be hard for people to change their opinions of you. Another reason why it's dangerous getting your friends involved in your relationship by giving them all the details is that, they're likely going to be triggered, especially if you share with them a story that they are very sensitive towards. It's triggered them because it's reminding them of their own history. And as such, they're not going to give you advice that's good for you. They're going to give you advice that worked for them. They're seeing things through their own filters of what happened to them. So this leads on to the fact that friends don't necessarily give the best advice. There are some friends that do, but even they are limited because they don't have all the information to give you the best advice. They form a certain opinion of your partner, and it's not fair on your partner because your friend doesn't know everything. They don't know exactly all the nuances. It's often hard to admit to our friends that, I made the mistake here and I was part of this. I had a role to play. There is a danger in believing what other people tell you, and then you bring it to the relationship and it will negatively affect the relationship because it's been bad advice. For me personally, this is why I don't really get my friends involved in my personal life. However, when it comes to dating someone who's personality disordered, this is when it's actually good to reach out to people. When you feel this relationship is different in its energy, this person isn't quite like other people that you've dated in the past. Perhaps they're very intense, more so than other people. They tend to get a lot more triggered. We find ourselves doing things and acting in ways that perhaps we haven't so much in other relationships. And interestingly enough, a lot of people tend to be quiet with their friends about these kind of relationships. Why is this? Perhaps it's not knowing where to start. Maybe there's a lot of shame in admitting that I'm in this relationship in which, it's not actually the kind of relationship I want to be in. Maybe there's shame in admitting that I'm with someone who's actually quite toxic. Maybe there's some denial going on there that this relationship is toxic. Maybe you're thinking, if I just sort this particular issue out, then everything will fall into place and the relationship will be normal again. So I'm going to keep quiet until this gets sorted out. The problem with doing this, though, is that if someone is personality disordered, then the issues don't really get resolved. At least in my experience, from what my clients tell me, it's ongoing things, and people who are avoidant, people who don't like confrontation, people who just run away from their issues, well, then things don't really get resolved, and we're forever trying. We find that we end up not living our lives for ourselves, but living our lives to make the other person happy. We spend the day trying to micromanage our personality disordered partners, thinking that if I just make them happy, if I just give them what they want, then they can be the happy person that I fell in love with. You know, they can be the person that I initially fell for. They can be a better person, and then I can be happy, and then the relationship will be fine. You know, always wanting to change yourself, to adapt yourself, to censor yourself in order to keep the other person happy. And often we don't want to share this with other people because we don't want to admit to ourselves that something's not right here. And by having to talk to someone about it is essentially admitting that there's a problem. However, when you are dating someone who is toxic, someone who is so dysfunctional that it's destroying you, now is a time to say something to someone. Okay, perhaps your friends have noticed there's a change in your personality, your behavior, you seem different and not in a good way. And maybe you've distanced yourself from them because you just don't want to admit that, yeah, there is something wrong. But denial is not just a river in Egypt. Listen, if you are suffering, if you're in an abusive relationship, it is a good idea to tell someone, okay? And if you have no one to talk to about this, there are people that you can talk with. There are Samaritan helplines. There are YouTube videos out there where you can leave comments and reach out to people going through similar things as you. There are charities in the UK. There are charities for people who have dated someone who is highly narcissistic. There are forums, there are blogs, there are counselors, there are therapists, there are coaches. There's always someone who can listen to you. And the good thing about actually talking to someone who is a professional counselor, for example, or a therapist or a psychotherapist, someone who is not going to get triggered by your story and can offer you the best advice, or at least hold the space for you whilst you share your story. Because often just simply telling another person that you're not okay, sharing your experience, is healing in itself. To be listened to be able to breathe and know that you are being listened to, especially when your abusive partner isn't listening to you at all. There's always people that you can talk to. You just need to reach out and to know the difference about when to stop talking to your friends about it versus actually reaching out and talking to your friends about it. And it's okay if you realize that your friends aren't the best people to deal with this. It's quite a lot unloading to friends when you're dating someone who is abusive. Maybe you don't want them to get triggered. And maybe quite simply, they're not equipped to deal with this. Look, friends aren't necessarily equipped to deal with this. It's quite a lot to unload onto someone if you're in an abusive relationship. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't have the right friends. Okay, everyone is caught up in their own drama. People are caught up in their own suffering because everyone suffers. So it's okay if your friends just don't have the time or space or are equipped to be able to handle what you share with them. So this is why it's good to reach out to professionals. It's why it's good to reach out to people online who aren't necessarily professionals, but they don't know who you are. And that's okay. There is actually, it can be quite helpful sharing with someone who doesn't know you and your story, because if it's shame and guilt that is holding you back, then often it's a lot easier to talk to someone who doesn't know you. Don't be afraid to reach out. And if you want to reach out to me, great. Send me an email, melanieprsvp@gmail.com. You can share your thoughts, your stories in the comments below. I know that my clients are finding it really helpful to see under my videos that there's other people who have been in their situations. And that really helps, just knowing that you're not alone. Knowing that you're not crazy, it really helps to normalize the experience, to realize you're not alone in your suffering. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think, and Until next time, have a great day. Bye bye.